Hello, Chickchang back with another summary, but this time on Halo's Silent Storm, which is the first of 3 books based on the Master Chief story and Blue Team. This is a bit of a jump back from Halo 3 timeline-wise, but it will have everything caught up to the new book that just came out, Shadows of Reach. So, without further delay, let's begin. In order to kind of set up the story, I will read the historian's note from the beginning of the book to kind of explain what's going on just before I jump right in. On March 1st, 2526, approximately 1 year after the loss of Harvest, during humanity's first contact with the Covenant, Vice Admiral Preston Cole arrives to counterattack with the largest fleet in human history. In his bid to reclaim the colony, the 40 ships of Battle Group X-Ray squared off against a single Covenant super destroyer and lost 13 vessels before finally overcoming the staggering power of the enemy ship. Now, with a handful of colonies already fallen to the Covenant invasion and many more worlds in its path, the United Nations Space Command, or UNSC, is pivoting to a new strategy and scrambling to stop the greatest existential threat humanity has ever faced. So clearly, this is very early on in the Human Covenant War. We start aboard the UNSC Prowler Starry Night with Jon and 11 other Spartans, who are preparing to board the Covenant vessel named Radiant Arrow and steal it. The intel on the Covenant at this point is almost none. They know that they are the enemy, and they are technologically far superior. Jon asks the Prowler captain, Halima Ascot, when they will be caught up with their target. Halima says it depends, and kind of leaves it at that. Not much of an answer, so Jon pushes for more information, and when telling her that they need a little warning before going EVA, she interrupts him, telling him that's precisely why the mission might not go. Because of the speed of the enemy ship, they are having issues syncing with them, and with the window of opportunity being so small, it creates a very high risk. But Jon tells her that Spartans work fast, and all but one of the Covenant breathe oxygen, so rebreather time only matters for getting to the ship, not the whole mission. Granted, only one species they know of doesn't breathe oxygen. And Halima says just that. There is still much that they don't know about the Covenant, which Jon tells her is the reason for this mission in the first place, to learn more about the enemy. This kind of pisses her off, and Jon apologizes. However, still says that they need to take the risk, which she knows, but she wants him to understand the risks before they go, and that waiting for a bigger window of opportunity might be better. But they had been following the ship for a day, and Jon tells her the longer they wait, the worse the situation's probably just going to get, and they might end up causing a permanent loss of opportunity to board and steal the ship. At this point, Ascot gives in, telling the Spartans that the mission's a go. Jon then thinks back to the mission on Tri-City 4 when Sam was killed. All but 3 Spartans missed the target when going EVA. Granted, Spartans now had more prep time, changes to the loadout, and a better understanding overall of what to expect. The mission was still a recipe for disaster though, going in blind, but they had to try and do something. With the way the war was going, there isn't much choice in the matter. Before they jump, they do last checks and go over protocols. His team reminds him that he's done this twice. He apologizes for overbriefing, and that it's just because of the lack of intel they have going into the mission. Joshua tries to tell him that it's an advantage to be ignorant because they will be more careful. Doesn't really buy it, but he appreciates the out he was trying to give him. They all jump out from the Prowler on their intercept course for the Radiant Arrow, the Spartans spreading out to avoid being seen on their way. Time passes as they get closer, and Jon realizes that all the Spartans were on track to make the intercept. Way better than the Tri-City 4 mission. They position themselves behind Banshees, getting close enough to take out both the pilots and start killing all the Covenant in the hangar bay. Once done, they board and eliminate any survivors and split into their teams. Blue team composing of John 117, Kelly 087, Fred 104, and Linda 058. They would head for the bridge. Green team, who was led by Kurt 051, includes Solomon 069, nice, Malcolm 059, and Anton 044. And they would be going for the engineering section. The third group, Gold team, was led by Joshua 029, Daisy 023, Naomi 010, and Grace 093, and they would support both teams as well as dumping Covenant tech out for pickup as a hedge against mission failure. Blue team pushed up the hallway towards the bridge, while green team swept each room along the way. Once to the doors that didn't open by proximity, they pause and wonder if they should blow the doors. Jon decides not to because it's more likely they're just support airlocks. Blue team preps to blow a door, and a flight officer on one of the Prowlers broadcasts over the general channel, which basically takes the stealth away from the Spartans, making the mission of taking the ship much more difficult. Jon has to calm down both Kelly and Daisy before continuing, getting them refocused on the task at hand and worry about what just happened after the mission. The Spartans fight both drones and elites for the first time on this mission, noticing that the elites are much more formidable as warriors. Gold team took over the main deck, eliminating about 200 aliens, and green team is still heading for engineering, but having issues trying to find it. While blue team entered a grav lift tube trying to push for the bridge, a firefight breaks out and grenades are thrown, which just causes all of blue team except for Jon to fall to the bottom of the lift, all in gel lock, and Kelly also having a compound rib fracture. Jon tells Fred to get her out of there when his gel lock ends, and then he continues to the bridge. Once at the top of the tube, Linda tells him that she can catch up, but he wants her to get out because the tube is a kill zone. Blue leader then throws grenades into the bridge and eliminates many of the elites that are there. He enters and finishes any survivors until noticing the apparent commander ready to hit a den man switch. He fires upon the commander, but isn't able to stop the hand from hitting, but not everything detonates right away. Green team had reached the engineering at this point, but even they had noticed it was way too easy. So Jon orders everyone to get off the Covenant ship because it's probably about to blow. Linda was being attacked by drones, which delayed her progress because she was split from everybody else, but she eventually gets away as well. Jon avoids the attack from the grab tube when a drone tries to fly up and kill him, but it just gets cut in half by his assault rifle. When the commander removes his hand from the switch, Jon leaps into an escape pod and gets away from the alien vessel as it explodes. Everyone makes it off safely, which is a relief, especially after the flight officer's mistake, which looking back, the mission might have been a total success if it wasn't for that. However, there is a chance that the same outcome occurs. Just after the events previously, Sergeant Avery Johnson shows up on UNSC Everest, which is the flagship of Battle Group X-Ray. Just woken up from cryo, heads down to a meeting with two admirals, which happen to be Preston Cole and Stanforth, and then Dr. Halsey also accompanies, where they have a briefing about what to do next. The two options being debated at the moment are attacking right away and likely losing everything, or defending at strong points and trying to build up, which would let hundreds of planets get glassed and billions killed. So neither options are obviously very good. After more deliberation and realizing they have no idea how the Covenant would really attack, Halsey says that they should attempt another ship capture, which is when Avery starts to get a feeling of why he might be there. After all, he did board a Kig-Yar vessel and get close to taking it. Eventually, the admirals agree with Catherine. They need to capture another ship, or multiple ships. Then look to Avery asking what he thinks of the Covenant, which does shock him at first, but states his opinions. First stating that while the technology of the Covenant is superior to theirs, the soldiers are not. Brutes are ferocious, but not very clever. Jackals are cunning, but not brave whatsoever. The drones are unrelenting, but easy to direct. And the grunts are more of an obstacle than a threat, most of which are actually quotes by Johnson. He's then asked about the elites, but Johnson hasn't actually fought any of them on Harvest, so he doesn't really know. Johnson asks why he's there, but they themselves don't know what he's there for yet. They just want someone with experience on the team. Halsey reveals something that he didn't expect her to know, that he was an Orion Project volunteer. He tries to brush off that he doesn't know what she's talking about because it's classified. However, he kind of realizes that they probably know more about it than he does. So he goes along with it. Stanforth tells him that they want him on a team more hard-hitting than just ODSTs to try and attempt to capture another Covenant vessel, the biggest they can get. Cole jokingly tells Johnson that he will have nukes, which admitting that they are fun, he tells them he hasn't really volunteered for anything yet. But they are confident that he will since he always does. They then go through what resources they have. The big thing being the 21st ODST Space Assault Battalion, Colonel Crowther's Black Daggers, which are known even by the insurrection, which grabs Avery's interest. But he would be added to a team of 12 Spartans. Obviously, Johnson asks what a Spartan is, and he's shown. Impressed by the stature of the Mjolnir armor, Halsey proudly explains that it's the least of their assets. They are what he was meant to be. Johnson's a little butthurt by this, but Halsey tells him that he didn't fail Project Orion. It failed him. This makes Johnson wonder what he's really even needed for if the Spartans are so much better than anything the UNSC has at their disposal. Well, Johnson has 20 years of experience that the Spartans don't have. Plus, he kind of knows what they've been through when it comes to the augmentations. Stanforth tells Johnson that while they are top-notch soldiers, they are only 15, which again catches Avery off guard. He was about to say that should make them children, but Stanforth cuts him off claiming that they are not children. So he needs to get that out of his head. So Johnson's expected to be the sergeant to them, but just one that's not really going to be giving any orders. Johnson thinks about it, knowing that if he said no, he would probably end up somewhere he didn't want to be. So because he's crucial to the mission, he says yes. Later on the UNSC stealth cruiser Vanishing Point, a meeting takes place with Admiral Cole at the head, introducing the rest to each other. First being Captain Halima Ascot as the new commander of Task Force Yama, which contains 3 squadrons of prowlers. Colonel Marmon Crowther, who leads the 800 ODSTs. Avery Johnson is introduced next as a special tactics sniper who led the defense of Harvest. Dr. Halsey, the lead on figuring out how the alien tech works, so anything that could be salvaged or captured would make a big difference in the war if she's able to get it. And last but not least, John 117 is introduced, leader of the Spartans, which itself is classified top secret. So if anyone talks about them, they will be charged. They are all notified that they are now part of the task force in Operation Silent Storm, the title of the book. Their mission being to intercept the Covenant invasion fleet and board as many capital ships as they can and detonate nukes inside their hulls. Both Ascot and Crowther were shocked by this. John took the opportunity to gain the upper hand, telling the Admiral that he found it to be a great idea, especially since they will never see it coming. Crowther tells him it's for good reason. After all, it would be hard to get close enough with even one ship. How could they do that with a whole battalion? It probably can't be done. Cole tells him that he should include John in on the planning session since Spartans are good at doing the impossible. Interestingly enough, though, Crowther just responds if those are his orders. But Cole tells him his only orders are to do what is necessary to take down the Covenant, because they have to get Ewan someplace, because if they can't now, the war's lost. Halsey tells Cole to put Jon in charge because Jon, has faith in the mission. Cole doesn't think he's ready to be in charge of a whole battalion. When she asks Crowther how many battles he's won against the Covenant, knowing the answer already, Cole jumps in telling her that's not the point. Jon finally jumps in and tells Dr. Halsey that the Black Daggers don't know him, so it wouldn't be smart to put him in charge over somebody that they trust, like the Colonel. Then tells Crowther that he looks forward to serving under him. Cole then tells everybody that Eidolon is currently being glassed, so that the next target that the Covenant would probably go for would be Biko, which is an insurrectionist planet. So that's where they plan to hit them. Battlegroup X-Ray will be the main force while Yama goes in for boarding, and if successful, the roles will be reversed. When the Covenant chase Yama, the rest of the battle group will then chase their tails, then disappear and do it again and again. Everyone understands, and Ascot is told to be in charge of everything until the troops are groundside. Then Crowther is in charge. Jon reports to Crowther, but the Spartans report to Jon. And while Johnson is a training resource for both Black Daggers and the Spartans, he's to be attached to the Spartan squad. Halsey has no authority whatsoever, but everyone is told to try and keep her happy and alive. If she dies, they are screwed. So she will stay on the vanishing point, since it will be the only ship not engaging in battle. During the beginning of the 10-day slipspace jump, the Spartans and ODSTs trained, starting with equal numbers on each side during their exercises, but the Colonel realized that the ODSTs can't compete one-on-one. Duh. So it was switched up. At 5-1 disadvantage, Spartans started getting armor locked with the TLR rounds both sides fought with, and at 12-1 odds, the Spartans didn't prevail, which was half of what it usually took against ODSTs. So the Black Daggers were truly the best that the UNSC had. When Avery took over leading the ODSTs, things got harder. Johnson was using tactics that made the Spartans' reactions and instincts liabilities, such as sacrificing a sniper to bait Linda out only to get counter-sniped, spending soldiers to bring the Spartans out, something Jon had actually seen the Covenant do. However, they don't understand UNSC tactics like Avery, so it was almost like he was cheating. By the 4th day, Jon decided that he was going to try and counter this by standing back and waiting for them to advance, but this only worked until they ran out of ammo. But before the 5th day, when Jon was going to try something different, Crowther had everyone meet in the drop hangar organized in their separate companies. He admits that when given the mission at first, he didn't think it could be done, but after training with the Spartans the past few days, he decided the Black Daggers had changed his mind. Yeah, that's who changed his mind. And they had learned a new tactical way of fighting, and he hopes that they never actually have to use it. This makes Jon sick, thinking that it was for only exercise purposes. He couldn't actually think about being a part of something that would use tactics like that. But it gets worse. Now he wants to try training with one Spartan attached to 12 companies of ODSTs, and would have them carry the nukes. This frustrates Jon, not only because they would be put into a support role when they should be leading, but he was also splitting the Spartans up. Halsey had factored that Spartans alone were 1/16th as effective as compared to being in teams of 4. But since he hadn't actually talked to him about tactics, he wouldn't know that. Sergeant Johnson whispers to Jon that he can't be happy with this, and Jon admits that he's not. But Crowther didn't ask for his opinion. Johnson tells him that he didn't want to give him a chance to shoot down his plan, so Jon has to say something now. Jon doesn't feel comfortable doing this and tells him that he will wait till they are in private. But, once again, Avery tells him that won't ever happen. If he wants to say something, he has to say something now. So Jon tells him that he'll wait till they are dismissed. However, Crowther hears them at this point and asks what the question was, since that would be the only reason for him talking. Jon asks how the Spartans will be able to help each other if they are split up. Easy answer, they won't. But apparently the Black Daggers is all they will need for support, according to Crowther. However, Avery actually jumps in, saying that, while they are impressive, they are not Spartans. And anyone could carry a nuke. Why should the Spartans have that job? Crowther explains that the ODST division is more successful when leading with experience, and claims that Spartans are just kids, which sets off the other 11 Spartans, but nobody more than Daisy. Jon tries to get her to stand down, but it was too late. Crowther gets sort of in her face, since she has a helmet on and is still a head taller than him, and asks her age, which is classified. However, Crowther knows their birthdays are falsified, because the Paymaster General records were not adjusted. So, he knows that they were training 8 years ago, which according to their 19-year-old age means that they start at 11, which is closer to the truth than he realizes. Jon tells him he shouldn't speculate why Oni does anything, and Johnson suggests an alternative way to go about the situation. Try some training with Crowther's idea and splitting the Spartans up, and they can evaluate how it goes afterwards. Crowther agrees and says that they will need 3 days of training to see instead. And while all of that is going on, the insurrectionist leaders from all over meet on a frigate called the Bellicose to discuss the threat of the UNSC and the new covenant that some are now just hearing about. The captain of this ship and host of the meeting, Loren Castilla, who happens to be the rebel legend, is also with General Harper Garvin, who wants to unify the outer colonies against its aggressors. General Harper Garvin also used to be part of the UNSC. He explains that the UNSC is at war with an alien race known as the Covenant, which shocks some of them, thinking that the aliens were made up by the UNSC. Patora Zoyas of the Gao Liberation Force offers intel on the Spartans, after someone else is talking about having to fight them on Jericho 7. And she knows all about Operation Silent Storm. That's going to be a problem, obviously. And it turns out Castillo was the woman who was married to Preston Cole when he was a captain. Anyways, so they know that the battle group is going to engage the Covenant at Biko, and in order to try and preserve themselves, they want to try and make an alliance with the Covenant. Giving them intel on the Spartans could be a way to see if they are trustworthy, and in the end, they could give up Earth's location to try and buy their freedom. Stupid, stupid, stupid. And if the UNSC is winning the war, they could just threaten to give the location to the Covenant in order to buy their freedom from the UNSC. I guess that kind of makes sense, but still stupid. They also know of the 3 Spartan teams a part of Task Force Yama. But across the UNSC, they think there's probably no more than 1,000. Funny enough, they are lucky that there isn't that many. So they will do what they can to take over Biko before the Covenant arrives, and they will try to broker peace with them to try and defeat the UNSC. During the first training mission with the Spartans paired to their Black Dagger platoons, Jon notices many things wrong with their positioning. Him in the back and the amount of ODSTs in the drop bay was the start, but nothing said was able to change anything. Before rehearsing a drop while under fire, with no actual fire, an urgent comm burst came through letting everyone know that there is a planned coup on the government of Biko, and that the insurrectionists are in the ice quarry that they had planned on taking on the moon of Seoba. So it is no longer a training exercise, which kind of makes Jon happy. Terrible conditions is what Spartans did best, and what they are going to be doing was going in blind, which was not good at all. Hector Nieto, Ghostflight's captain, came into the drop bay in order to tell everyone that they need to prevent the comm tower at the top of the mass driver from being repaired after the Prowlers hit it on their first run. They can figure out how after landing. Then asks Jon to come back so he can talk to him in private. Jon looks to Avery, who just nods. After closing the door, Hector Nieto apologized for the flight officer's mistake from the mission in the beginning of the story. He thought that he had gotten them all killed, but then again, he remembered who they were. When Jon asks what he means, Hector says that they are Spartans. Guess that's what you can expect when you start training at 5, which catches Jon way off guard since that's pretty close to what the truth is. Jon asks where he heard that, and Hector says from a guy that trained with some kid mandos on Reach. Jon tries to ask what his name, but he dodges until revealing that he's dead. So Jon just tells him to forget the conversation and move on. Nieto sympathizes with him and says that it's not right what Colonel Crowther is doing to him and the Spartans, not utilizing them at all. Jon agrees, but states that it's because he hasn't worked with them before. Nieto tells him that that's not it. It's because of his ego. Jon dismisses that, but Nieto is persistent. Crowther may not be doing it on purpose, but he's still doing it. Avery interrupts because Nellie Ham, 1st Platoon Lieutenant, wants to vac the bay in 2 minutes, so they salute Nieto and head back to the drop bay. Jon tells Avery he will tell him later about what was discussed. After all, they were getting ready to drop. And that is where we will leave off with part 1 of the summary. Just before the battle on Seoba, the Covenant on their way, insurrectionists wanting to try and broker peace with them, and the UNSC wanting to prevent any coup on Biko and deal a blow to the Covenant. Hope everyone enjoyed the video and hope you join me in the next one. Subscribe to know when more videos are released and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Chickchang out.